I was struck this last week by a photo I saw in the news of armed protesters who had stormed the Michigan State Capitol and were yelling, unmasked, directly into the faces of the guards, as the guards had to stand there, breathing in God knows what pathogens that the protesters might have been spewing, along with their anger. Those protesters didn't just show up, gun in hand, spontaneously. What voice are they listening to, I wonder, that encourages that kind of behavior and fans the flames of their rage? And as this crisis continues, and we try to discern the way forward, whose voice do we listen to? Whose guidance do we heed? The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep, says Jesus. The sheep follow him because they know his voice. They won't follow a stranger, but will run from him because they don't recognize the voice of the stranger. So whose voice are you listening to these days? Amid the cacophony of our many news outlets, Facebook and Reddit and Twitter feeds, to whom, when they speak, do you sit up and listen? Whose voice do you follow when you're trying to find your way? That's the question that Jesus seeks to answer in our gospel passage. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep, says Jesus. The sheep follow him because they know his voice. The key to our health, to our survival even, is our ability to recognize the one who will guide us to safety. Fortunately for us, what we learn from this passage in John is that sheep are apparently smarter than we might think. The sheep hear his voice, it says. They won't follow the voice of the stranger. Jesus speaks these words in the midst of conflict between himself and many of the official leaders of his day. Those leaders were finding ways to profit from the turmoil of their own time, even as they claimed to speak for God, saying that those who suffered were experiencing divine punishment. But the Good Shepherd, as Jesus told them, wasn't about exploitation or punishment or death. The Good Shepherd was about calling the sheep to safety. The Good Shepherd was about leading them to green pastures and still waters and brimming tables and life, abundant life. When I read Psalm 23, that classic portrait of God as our shepherd, what comes over me is a feeling of deep calm. The shepherd doesn't help the psalmist to avoid the dark valley or rage against the difficulties of that valley. Instead, the shepherd leads them through the valley without panic, without recrimination, without hurry. The shepherd guides them with intentionality, aware of the surroundings, alert to the dangers of that wilderness, even while providing the still waters, the nourishment, the soothing oil that will sustain them in their journey. So if we're trying to decipher how God is speaking to us in the midst of all the other voices, we need to listen for that calm wisdom and sustaining nurture. The sheep hear his voice, Jesus says. He calls them by name and leads them out. They follow him because they know his voice. And later he warns, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. This, right now, is a critical moment in the life of the church and the nation and the world. We are surrounded by a lot of dangers, and whose voice we listen to can mean the difference between life and death, not just for us, but for everyone around us. But it's not easy to know whose voice to follow, especially when there have always been those who claim to speak for God. With it no longer possible to hear Jesus' voice directly, how do we know who speaks for him? Well, Jesus tells us that this is the litmus test, whether the voice we hear is leading us toward death and destruction or toward life and abundance. Jesus' voice has always called us toward life. More than that, Jesus' voice has always called us to care for the lives of others. A shepherd, after all, doesn't watch over just one sheep. A shepherd cares for the entire flock. And just as we hope for the day of herd immunity from COVID-19, it is as a flock or a community that Jesus calls us toward life. So the one who became poor for our sake isn't going to tell us to put profits over people or to grab whatever we can at the expense of our neighbors. The one who risked his own life in order to defend the poor and women and outcasts isn't going to tell us to defend our rights by trampling on the rights of others. The one who told us to love our neighbors as ourselves isn't going to tell us that some of those neighbors have now become expendable. We aren't out of this particular wilderness, and we won't be for a long time. The only way to get through it is to be sure we're following the right voice, God's voice. Today, God's voice calls us to the table, set for us in the midst of this wilderness. There we will remember what it feels like to be gathered together, to be cared for, to be nurtured. We will hear Christ's loving invitation and taste once again his goodness. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, says the psalmist. Goodness and mercy. Because that's what's at the heart of it all, and at the center of everything that comes from the mouth of God. Goodness. God's goodness and mercy for us and for this whole world. Our true shepherd won't call us to anything less. Thanks be to God.